صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. صلی علی Muhammad. Respected Maulana, dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. The time is now 8:02 and we will begin our program this evening. Our program tonight will be comprised of Salam and Marsiya recited by Brother Shafqat Shah. This will then be followed by tonight's lecture led by Hujjatul Islam, Shayk Dr. Mahdi Hazari, and we will conclude inshallah with Noha and Ziyarat. Before we begin our program, for those of us who are here inside of the masjid, I would kindly request you to just take a moment. Please double check your cell phones that they are on silent and on mute. At this time, I would then like to request Brother Shafqat Bhai to please come forward at this time. Let's all greet him with a loud salawat. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوات پر محمد و آل محمد. یا امام رضا، 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 یا امام رضا. ہر نفس ہر گھڑی میرے دل سے یہی آ رہی ہے صدا. یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا. تیری عظمت پہ بھلا کیوں نہ دلالت بنتا، شیر قالین کا کس طرح نہ زندہ ہوتا. ہے حقیقت یہی تیری مرضی میں ہی ہے خدا کی رضا. یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا. غیر ممکن کو یوں ہوتے ہوئے دیکھا ممکن، جاگتی آنکھوں سے جنت میں گزارے کئی دن. اس کو کیا ہو یقین جس نے دیکھا نہیں کبھی روضہ تیرا. یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا. وقت کیسا یہ میرے ذہن میں آیا ہے ابھی، جیسے گہوار نے فطر اس کو شفا بانٹی تھی، ویسے ہی روز و شب بانٹتا ہے شفا. تیرا صحن شفا. یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا. میری اس وقت تیرے در پہ نظر ہے مولا، اور تجھے میری مصیبت کی خبر ہے مولا. دور افتاد کر میری امداد کر، تو ہے مشکل کشا یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا۔ التجا آپ سے کرتا ہوں امام ہشتم، ان کے صدقے میں جنہیں کہتے ہیں معصومکم، جو پریشان ہیں جلد کر دیجئے ان کی حاجت روا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا، یا امام رضا۔ صلوات پر محمد۔ برا دیگر حدیث صلوات۔ کاں پہ کاں برس رہے ہیں تابوت پر حسن کے، پہ کاں برس رہے ہیں تابوت پر حسن کے، امت مٹا رہی ہے آثار پنجتن کے، پیکاں برس رہے ہیں تابوت پر حسن کے، زینب پکاری بھائی دل ڈوبتا ہے میرا، زینب پکاری بھائی دل ڈوبتا ہے میرا، اگلو نہ دل کے ٹکڑے صدقے گئی دہن کے، اگلو نہ دل کے ٹکڑے صدقے گئی دہن کے، بابا کے دل کے ٹکڑے تو نے گنے 72، بابا کے دل کے ٹکڑے تو نے گنے 72، ٹکڑے 1000 ہوں گے قاسم تیرے بدن کے، ٹکڑے 1000 ہوں گے قاسم تیرے بدن کے، 2 بار مل گیا ہے تم کو کفن مولا، 2 بار محتاج ہی رہیں گے شبیر تو کفن کے محتاج ہی رہیں گے شبیر تو کفن کے تابوت سے لپٹ کے قاسم پکارے بابا تابوت سے لپٹ کے قاسم پکارے بابا آنسو اخی کے دیکھو نوحے سنو بہن کے آنسو اخی کے دیکھو نوحے سنو بہن کے زینب ہے بال کھولے امت ہے تیر تولے زینب ہے بال کھولے امت ہے تیر تولے پوچھو نہ شام کے جب یہ حال ہے وطن کے پوچھو نہ شام کے جب یہ حال ہے وطن کے سائے میں مرتضیٰ کے بچھڑے تھے فاطمہ سے سائے میں مرتضیٰ کے بچھڑے تھے فاطمہ سے اور آج پاس ماں کے آئے ہیں لاش بن کے اور آج پاس ماں کے آئے ہیں لاش بن کے امت مٹا رہی ہے آثار پنجتن کے پیکاں برس رہے ہیں تابوت پر حسن کے صلوات پر محمد وآل محمد
Jazakallah Shafqat Bhai. For his sehat and salamati, please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, I would now like to share some important community announcements. The first is the Mahdi Youth Sisters Group is hosting a Q&A session with Shayk Dr. Mahdi Hazari tonight at 9:30 p.m. after this Majlis. The topic at hand is the connection between stewardship of the earth and environmental conservation. For sisters that are interested in joining, please reach out to Sister Shizza Zehra. Second, the Bloomage team, which is a nonprofit group started by sisters here in our own community, will be hosting a homework club for any Bethel Ilm youth in need of tutoring in the subjects of math, English, and reading right after Sunday school. For additional information, you can go to mybloomage.com, that's MYBLOOMAGE.com. With regards to next weekend's program, next Saturday, Bethel Ilm will be hosting its final Majlis, commemorating the Shahadat of Imam al-Askari alayhi salam. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That program will start immediately after Salatul Maghribain at 7:03, and then on Sunday, September 24th, will be the Eid Hazara program, and that will begin also right after Salat al-Maghrib. Both of these programs will be addressed by Shayk Muhammad Asadi. I would now like to recognize our sponsors for tonight's program. For the health, safety, and continued blessings for the families of Mrs. Shama Raza, Dr. Ali Mahdi, and Brother Hashim Rizvi, please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The sponsors have requested that you remember the marhumin of your families as well as the marhumin of their families. In particular, Sayyid Abbas Raza, Tayyiba Mahdi Rizvi, and Mufad Hussain Rizvi. Please join me in reciting a Surah Fatiha preceded by a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Once again, I would kindly request if you could please double check your cell phones to make sure that they are on mute or at least on vibrate. And at this time, I would like to request Hujjat al-Islam, Shayk Dr. Mahdi Hazari to the member with a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المضطهدين. السلام عليك وعلى ولدك المظلوم أبي عبد الله الحسين. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب يا مظلوم يا عطشان كربلاء، ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم أمنا من لجأ والتجأ إليكم يا ليتنا فيا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. والسلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear brothers and sisters, on this last day of my visit with all of you, I again want to thank you for giving me the honor of commemorating with you. It has been my distinct pleasure and my distinct honor. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us closer to Him and allows us to live a life that is unfettered by loyalty to anything and drive towards anything other than Him. I have mentioned over the last 2 nights that in our religion and according to the code that Allah has taught us, that belief in La ilaha illallah is the foundation for everything, and that is what we inculcate in our children. Just as you teach your children good akhlaq, or that you teach your children to pray, or you teach your children to fast, or you teach your children to be generous to the poor and the destitute, you do so with the foundation that that act or any act is done for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we've spoken over the last 2 nights, I've mentioned to you that just because a person outwardly complies with rules and obligations does not necessarily mean that they're a moral person. That morality is a deep thing that is connected to faith, and that it is only by recognizing that Allah has instituted a code for us that we can truly adopt what is considered to be proper or universal morality. Everything else is susceptible to the opinion of insan, and not just the opinion of insan, but insan's emotion, insan's personal circumstances, the trials, the difficulties that a person may undergo at any moment. That's why you turn to Allah for that code. He tells you. So I ask this question of you as we start tonight, that if a person follows the law of Allah, follows what the law says, does only what is halal and stays away from that which is haram, have they automatically been included amongst those people who are moral? Will you ascribe morality to them? It is a difficult question. And why do I ask this question? I'll give you an example, okay? Today, we see a lot of these cases. A lot of these cases come to me, unfortunately, where there is a woman in the community who is divorced. She has recently gotten divorced, and she reaches out and she says, Maulana, I have become divorced, my iddah is over, I am now single. There is a man in the community, he wants to contract temporary marriage with me. Temporary marriage is allowed in Islam. It is something that unfortunately we have made taboo. We have considered it to be ugly, but it is mentioned in the Holy Quran and it is permissible in Islam. Now, why does it become taboo? Why do people look upon it as something vile and something that, no way. If you today, in some circles, if you talk about temporary marriage, or dare I say use the M word, mut'ah, right? everyone will go running for the hills, or they'll pelt stones at you until they throw you out of their houses. Why? Let me give you an example why. This woman will come and she will ask, she will say, I'm divorced, I am now single, this man has come to me and he wants to do temporary marriage with me. So the question I ask immediately is, why? Why does he want to do temporary marriage with you? Why not permanent marriage? And she will say, well, let me go and ask him and I will come back and I will relay the answer that I get from this man. So I go and the woman goes and asks, and sometime later she comes back and she says, oh, I went and I asked him that, why don't you want to do permanent marriage? The answer he gave is that, oh, I just want to get to know you right now. I just want to get to know you so we can figure things out and then we can decide what to do. And I say to her, I ask her that, what do you think is happening in your mind? What conclusion do you come to? You are a divorced woman. He wants to do temporary marriage, and when you ask him that, why not permanent marriage, he gives you this answer. What do you think his intention is? And unfortunately, there are very many women who they think that the man just really wants to get to know them. And maybe there are some men like that. There are some men who just want to get to know the woman so that maybe they are divorced themselves and they don't want to have the trouble of getting into a permanent marriage and then realize that they are not compatible. There are men who are like that, no question. But there are some men who have different motivation. And unfortunately, I have seen this case on many instances where they have a different motive for doing the temporary marriage. And that is to fulfill their physical desire with this woman. And you know how immediately you get that answer, how you know that that is the truth? I said to this woman, say no, either we'll do a permanent marriage or we can do a temporary marriage, but we will not have any physical contact in the temporary marriage. The temporary marriage will have the condition on it that we will only talk to each other. Beyond that, there will be no physical contact whatsoever. Later, when she came back, and I said, what happened? She says, oh, he stopped calling me. We laugh at these things, but this is happening. And the thing that is worrying, my dear brothers and sisters, is that if this man were to contract a temporary marriage with this woman, she fully agrees, they agree to the terms, and he is to have a physical relationship with her as agreed upon in the temporary marriage. And after the period of the temporary marriage is finished, he goes, he's gone. Has he committed a sin? He has not committed a sin technically. He did the marriage, he contracted it with her, he did what he wanted to do, he left. Has he committed a sin when it comes to temporary marriage, what he did with this woman? No, he didn't technically. He has done what the religion has said, do a temporary marriage. Whatever you agree, man and woman, you can fulfill it for yourselves. When the temporary marriage ends, you go your way, she goes her way, you're finished. So again, the question that I ask, if a man is to do this, is he acting morally? He is fulfilling the code of God. The law of God has been fulfilled. He has followed the rule, but is he a moral human being? I don't know. In my mind, I look at men like this, unfortunately, and I say, you're a predator in society. And you're a predator in the guise of Islam, unfortunately. No? Because you have taken this woman who is looking for an emotional connection to you, you have somehow gotten into her good graces, and what have you done? You have used her for your own physical pleasure and essentially tossed her aside and moved forward. Now maybe they have not violated the rule of law when it comes to temporary marriage and engaging in physical contact with the woman, etc. But I am certain that Allah will ask them about the treatment of this other human being, about the way that they have misused the law of God to deceive another human being. And indeed, men do this. And it's not just men, I'm not picking on men. Human beings have this nature inside of them. And you see that in society, I said this yesterday, that if I were to live alone in a cave and be a moral person by following God's law, there is no problem with that. It is a relatively easy thing to do. Why? Because there is no push and pull of society and people around me. It is when I have to interact with somebody else that now my life becomes difficult. That the implementation of morality is challenging when there are external factors to me. So now, not only are those external factors challenging, I mentioned to you how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam how he navigated these circumstances. Not only with the presence of Jews and Christians in Medina, but also different tribes, different ways of thinking. And that not only do you want to establish a community that has social responsibility, but instill in people that there is fairness and there is equity. So let me tell you a story. They say in the days of Medina, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam he had sent the army to a place where the tribe of Tai was located. And as the army approached, the tribe found out, the chief of the tribe, he decided he had to escape. So he gets on his horse and he escapes. He takes people with him and he goes. Unfortunately, what he ends up doing is he escapes the Muslim army's advance. He forgets his sister behind. So they say the Muslim army captures her, captures some other people, and brings them back to Medina. They are held in a humane and a proper manner. They are not prisoners, nothing like that. But they are held in a place, in a house, they say. They say, this sister of the chief, who is the chief? The chief is Aday ibn Hatim al-Ta'i. You all know the name, very well-known name. The sister, it's described, she's being held, and she is feeling anxious. Why? Because her brother left, and he left her behind. She was there. Why didn't he take her with him? So she is now in Medina with these Muslims. They are not Muslim. It is said that they were Christians. She's standing there. She's looking outside of the window. The street of Medina is in front of her. She sees Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam walking by. She says to him, she calls out to him. She says, "O Muhammad," she says, "show goodness and favor to me, God will show goodness and favor to you." They say Rasul doesn't turn his head, doesn't respond, he keeps walking. The next day, same thing happens. She's standing at the window, she sees Rasul at the door, whatever, the Rasul is walking by, she says the same thing. She says, "O Muhammad, show goodness and favor to me, your God will show goodness and favor to you in return. Be good to me, God will be good to you." He keeps walking, he doesn't turn his head. Third day comes, she sees Rasul going by, she doesn't say anything. She thinks to herself, I tried twice, he's not going to answer me. He's not answering me, he's ignoring me. Somebody walking behind Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam beckons to her and says to her, "Ask again." Like he gestures that ask. So she stands up quickly and she says, "O Muhammad, be good and show favor to me, your God will show goodness and favor to you." Suddenly Rasulullah turns around. He comes and he speaks to her. He says to her, "How is it that your brother left you behind and left you be?" She says, "I don't know, he left in such a hurry that he left me behind, but I want to be reunited with him. Send me back to my family. I'm alone here." Rasulullah, he says, "We have no intention of keeping you prisoner. We are not holding you. We are not trying to keep you prisoner. We have only delayed your return because there was no safe passage for you to get back to your brother. Wait a little time, we will send you back." She waits. They say that eventually he arranges the caravan. They put the caravan together and they take her. They say Aday ibn Hatim al-Ta'i, he has gone to Syria at that point. They bring her up. It's a long journey from Hijaz up to Syria. They bring her there. She finally is sitting in the house in Syria where they are. Her brother comes and finds her. He is elated to see his sister. He is so happy. She is angry at him. She says, "Why did you leave me behind? You left me behind." He says, "What could I do? I left in such a hurry to avoid the Muslim army that I forgot you." He says, tell me, what did you encounter? She said, I encountered a man named Muhammad. He is the Prophet of Islam. He says to her, tell me, my sister, about this man Muhammad. Well, let me hear about who he is and what his nature is. She gives him a description. She says two things at the end. She says, my brother, if he is a prophet, if it turns out that he actually is a prophet, then you should definitely join his side, because he will be superior to everybody else. She says, number two, she says, if he's not a prophet, now look, this is interesting. She says, if he's not a prophet though, if it turns out he's just an ordinary man, you should still go and live in his community, because I see morality, good behavior, and fairness such that you would never be wronged if you were one of his subjects. This is someone from outside. And we know what happened to Uday. No? He becomes a supporter of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He becomes one of the strong Shia. Does he not? Now I ask you the question, that when the third time Rasul is walking by, and she has lost hope that Rasul is going to turn and answer her call, the man walking behind her and beckons to her that, ask again, who is that? That is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Who else knows the Rasul this way? Only Ali. Only Ali knows Rasulullah this way. That ask again. Now why do I mention this? Because it is not just about how we interact with each other, how those relationships, the social relationships are formed, or that how human responsibility comes to fruition in society. But now what you see in the latter part of Rasulullah's life, just before his demise, you see the need for governance. It is challenging enough to establish morality and social responsibility amongst people, but now to have governance on top of it, leadership on top of it, is even harder. So difficult, not easy to establish. You need only to look at the challenges of the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Such that I've been reciting this ayah for you from the very beginning. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون فسادا في الأرض للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. The ayah, what does it say? It says that that place where everyone is going to go in the akhirah, we have made it for who? We have assigned it for who? We have assigned it for the people who don't want elevated status in the life of this world. لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ. They don't want elevated status in the life of this world. وَلَا فَسَادًا. They don't want fasad. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And the best of final position, or the final recourse of everyone, is going to be those who are based on piety. Now look at these two things that the verse is mentioning. And let me qualify it by an event. That when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When finally the Khilafah was given to him, and this is reported in Nahjul Balagha, it is the sermon of Shaqshaqiyya, in which Amir al-Mu'mineen, he speaks from his heart. Go and read it. And what does he say? He addresses a specific name and he says, this person knew my position. They knew that I was the focal point, that I was the axis, the pivot on which everything happened. Yet they chose to take what was mine. And I am paraphrasing the words. He says, when they came to me and finally asked me and said to me that you should become the Khalifa, and I accepted, what happened? Some of them disobeyed, some of them walked away, turned their back on me and walked away, and the others acted wrongly towards me. He is the leader now. He has been given governance. Leadership is his from the beginning because of Allah, because of Rasul. But now the people have finally put him in the place of Khilafah, and he says, once the Khilafah was given to me, what did the people do? They either disobeyed, They either turned their back and walked away, or they acted wrongly. They didn't act properly, as if they had not heard the verse of the ayah that says, تِلْكَ الدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا. It is as if they had never heard the verse of the Quran that says, the resting place, the final place of success in the next world, it has been made for those people who don't want elevated status in the life of this world. Nor do they want fasad. They don't seek fasad. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And the success is for those people who are pious. Now imagine the two things he is mentioning again in this verse. One, that you don't want an exalted status, nor do you want corruption. For us, ourselves, my dear brothers and sisters, what is it that causes us problem in society? In our personal lives, it is one of two things. Either we want recognition for something, we want to be recognized in a position that we think we deserve, or we have caused some corruption, some fasad. Now, the first one is easy to view. The first one is easy to understand. Why? Because our biggest problem is we see ourselves as bigger than we actually are. Unfortunately, this is inside. We see ourselves to be something we are not. And when we see that, we have expectation of how someone should act towards me. Let me give you an example. I have this white cloth on my head, yes? I wear the garb of an Islamic scholar. I walk around quite nobly, yes? But how do you know what I have inside of me? You don't. You don't know anything about what is inside of me, nor do I know what is inside of you. But I expect that because I am wearing this white garb on my head, this turban on my head, and a outfit that resembles the outfit of a scholar, that you should behave towards me in a certain manner. And God forbid if you ever come and call me by my first name, because that would be like the biggest taboo in the world. Although I will say this to you, that I love it when people just come and call me by my first name. It's actually very endearing. But you get my point. Even in any sense, we demand respect because we feel we have a position. The other thing is fasad. Fasad in English, when you translate it, it means corruption. It means to corrupt something. Now, how do you corrupt something? I'll give you a simple example, okay? Those in Chicago who know me know I love gulab jamun, okay? When I left after the Ashara, okay? This is not a true story, partially true, partially not, okay? When I left after the Ashara, I was at IEC and I left without any real intention for this. Sister Benin, she gave me a container of gulab jamun. So nice of her. I had a bag, I got it as a surprise, and she's like, oh, this is the best stuff, take it. I was elated, yes? I take it home with me to North Carolina. I get to North Carolina, I leave it on the counter. Now North Carolina in the summer is hot. It's like 100 degrees, high humidity. And I'm a cheapo, so I don't run the AC in my house to the detriment of my family. So I leave it out on the counter. And what at first I was deeply appreciative of Sister Benin's gulab jamun, I have gotten home and I have become a bit careless. I left it there. And I left it there and I was so tired. I went to sleep and my day-to-day, everything, my work starts and I get busy. And I leave it there. 1 week goes by, 2 weeks go by. Yes, my house, nobody cleans up. We leave stuff randomly lying around. I'm married to a Lebanese woman, so that never happens. That's why I'm saying some of this is true, some is not. So I leave it there on the counter. 2 weeks have gone by. How good do you think that gulab jamun is going to be? Man, soaking away in that sugar water syrup? No? Nah, of course not. It's rotting. It's gone rotten completely. Now, I'm definitely not going to tell Sister Benin that that's what I did with her gulab jamun. But if she were to find out, what would happen? She will say to herself that I gave you something of value, something that I considered from my heart to be valuable to you, and what did you do to it? You spoiled its value. You took it and you ruined it. This is fasad. That's fasad. Fasad is to take something that has intrinsic value, that has some significance, and you disregard it completely. You devalue it completely. Now, the truth of the matter is I ate them in like 2 days. They were gone. Huh? Yeah? A little gulab jamun and some chai, perfect, perfect. You don't need anything else. So, fasad in life is this. Now, just in my life, it's an easy thing. No? No, it's not easy. It's very difficult. Why? Because we are our own worst enemy. We ruin everything of value. We don't even value ourselves properly. Allah has put a gem inside of us. The mind of insan is so powerful, can achieve such great things, and we don't value the mind. Our own minds, the minds of other people. And I'm not saying that we are doing fasad, like on the grand scale, we are destroying society and spreading corruption. No. I'm saying we are not valuing things the way they should be valued. Now me as an individual, fine. I'm accountable to myself. But now imagine in society if this is happening on a grand scale. Or imagine you as a leader are responsible for the fact that there is corruption under you. How difficult it must be. So you see in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, that in those last few years of his life, he is ensuring that there is going to be some legacy after him, and that there is a succession plan. And there is enough evidence. I don't need to sit here and recount to you all of the hadith, all of the events, everything that has been done that indicates that who Rasul was pointing to after him. And why it is that he pointed in the direction of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. And why it is that the reins of society were placed in the hands of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. But I ask the question, that how long did it take after his demise for all of that to come undone? Very quick, no? And that's why some people ask that Rasul gave all his life, gave all his energy, everything he gave for the mission of God, completed his mission to the perfect extent, died, his ruh went to Allah, and he was reunited with God. Yet what happened immediately after his death? And how is it that we can reconcile his mission with what we see immediately after his death? Well, to some degree, you have to disconnect the two. What is considered leadership in society as determined by human beings, and leadership as determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no? One will take the path down society towards what is considered a Muslim nation. The other is going to take the path down what is considered the school of Rasulullah, the morality of Rasulullah, the way Rasulullah behaves, every teaching of Rasulullah through the leadership of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. You see this. It's a difference in leadership. And it only is up to us to sit and say, which side did we choose? Which path did we choose? And how did we establish leadership? And believe me, it's not easy. Even amongst us, the Shia, my dear brothers and sisters, when any movement begins, when it starts, how does it start? It starts small. In Mecca, who was there? In the beginning, it was 3. Rasulullah, Khadijat al-Kubra, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhim as-salatu was-salam. All of them, the 3 by themselves. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Started small. Was there any question about the sincerity, devotion of the 2 people who were with Rasulullah? No question whatsoever. But now you bring extra people in, no? You bring extra people in now as people start to convert. Bilal al-Habashi, we know he was a sincere follower. We bring such and such a person, such and such a person, such and such a person. What happens? It's the assumption that these people are sincere like the first 2 who joined Rasulullah. But maybe not. Let me give you an example. After the proclamation of the message of Rasulullah, the kuffar of Quraysh, what did they do? They got so tired that they threatened Bani Hashim. They said, if Muhammad does not desist, we will boycott you, we will embargo you. And where did they do? For 3 years they removed the Bani Hashim and they pushed them out into a ravine. 3 years they embargoed. No one will trade with them, no one will barter with them, no one will give them water, no one will give them food. My dear brothers and sisters, the Banu Hashim had been pushed out, 3 years suffered. 3 years they suffered. Suffered so badly that they say Khadijat al-Kubra, and I've mentioned this in a previous speech, that she would take the leaves from, the shrubs in the desert, the leaves on them, what they're like, they're so dry and small. She will take them, boil them in the water, and that's what they would eat. They were so poor. 3 years they underwent this. Now, some historians ask the question, it was such a difficult time, the Muslims facing this sort of blockade and embargo, but there were Muslims still living in Mecca. Not all the Muslims had been pushed out. Those of different tribes who were Muslim, they were still in Mecca, while Banu Hashim, Rasulullah, Sayyidah Khadija, Abu Talib, Imam Ali, all the rest of them are in the ravine. There are still some Muslims in Mecca. And the question has been posed, why did they not help? Why did they not bring food and water? It's a good question, reasonable question. I don't know that I want to venture an answer, but I will leave it to your thought. So what I'm saying is, when the movement grows, it starts small, it keeps growing, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to remain homogeneous? Everyone who is in the movement is going to have the same drive, the same enthusiasm, the same sincerity towards the movement? No, they won't. You will get people who have different motivations. Some who have strong motivations, some who have weak. Some who have weak morality, some have strong morality. Until eventually what happens? Until it grows and it's a very heterogeneous society. What do you think Islamic nation looked like at the demise of Rasulullah? It was a mix of people who really were sincere, some who were 50% sincere, some who were not sincere at all and just put on a double face in front of Rasulullah and the true Muslims. And then there were the enemies like Abu Sufyan, who constantly all they cared about was scheming and power, nothing else. In this time, leadership is extremely important. Why? Because leadership determines who the follower is. Leadership is what establishes morality. We have a connection to our leaders. It's human nature, human nature. My dear brothers and sisters, look at today. Whoever the leader is, whether we really feel a connection to them or not, if we come under that leader's umbrella, we automatically ascribe to their way of doing things. Let me give you an example, okay? They did a study, old study, it's called the Milgram experiment. It was a bit unethical. And I have spoken about this in the past, it's kind of a funny experiment. They brought in a couple of participants to see how people react to stressful situations. And what they did was, in the basement of a college building, they set up 2 rooms with a glass which you can only see through one way. On one side of the glass they had a person memorizing some things, some numbers. On the other side, the participant was sitting there as the tester, the person giving the test to the other one. In addition, there was one other person standing on top of the participant, supervising them, acting like an enforcer almost. Now, what was the goal? The person who was brought in to participate in this study was told that, look, you're going to give these numbers to this person to memorize. If they don't memorize them properly or they make a mistake, we have hooked them up to these electrodes, to these wires, you will shock them with electricity. Okay? I told you, unethical. Today you could never get away with these sorts of things. You will shock them. Although some days I think maybe if I use that on my kids it may work, if they're not doing their homework properly. Kids today with their phones, they're doing homework and they're looking at their phone, like if you had an electric cord attached to them, you could zap them real quick, and they stop. If you implement that, don't say that I told you to do it, please, okay? No liability here. So what did they do? They told them, look, zap them if they make a mistake. Now what they didn't know, the participant, is that if they pressed the button to zap them with the electricity, nothing was actually happening. The person on the other side was an actor and was pretending. Okay, they were all part of the study. So was the supervisor. What would happen? The person will memorize, they did it correctly, fine. They give them another set of numbers, they memorize some right, they make a mistake, they zap them. All right, they zap them. Now what they noticed was that these people who were participating and pressing the electric button to shock the person on the other side, they would hesitate a little bit. When the person made a mistake, they saw that they make a mistake and they start to hesitate. Why? Because it's not really moral to shock a person, no? It's not a moral thing to do, to go shock them. to cause pain to them. So what if they're not memorizing the numbers? It's not some big crime. Shocking them is not a moral thing to do. But they would hesitate. But you know what would cause them to press the button and shock them? The fact that that leader, that supervisor was standing there looking over their shoulder, almost grimacingly, saying, you better shock them because that's what this test is about. They said when the supervisor was taken away, they stopped shocking the people. Just the fact that that person who is a supervisor, an authority figure, is standing there on top of their head telling them, go ahead and shock, you better make sure to shock, they felt the pressure of that authority figure to shock them, to do something immoral. Leadership. We think it doesn't affect us. It affects us completely. That's why you have to know who is your leader. You have to recognize who is your leader and why it is you follow this person. Don't just follow anybody. Don't just say that I am going to take the philosophy of such and such a person and the teachings of such and such a person and the way of living of this person. Know why it is you follow them. And when Allah has said, I have chosen certain people for you as a role model, then take them as those role models. And if you pointed out people who should not be followed, then do not follow them. Shun them. Shun their lack of morality, shun their way of doing things, because eventually you will be associated with whoever you follow. No? And now the responsibility falls on our shoulders. Because just as Imam Ali alayhi salam is the leader, don't get it wrong. He was the leader. He was the leader because Allah determines leadership. Allah puts you in that position, not human beings. Allah says we have chosen the Imam. We have appointed the Imam. So those who are following this Imam become his Shia, right? And because they become his Shia, what happens? They're going to be held accountable based on what this leader has taught them. Now imagine the responsibility on our shoulders, my dear brothers and sisters. We are followers of the nafs of Rasul. We are the followers of the brother of Rasulullah, the wasi of Rasulullah, the Khalifa of Allah, etc. What a high status he has, and by virtue of that fact, if we follow him, what high status we should have. But it requires so much more out of us. It requires so much effort. And that's why in society, hold yourselves to that higher standard. Do not allow yourselves to participate in anything or behave in a manner that will bring a bad impression on your Imam. Because immediately they will look at you doing something bad and they will say the Imam of this person, the leader of this person, this individual follows, must be such a bad human being that their followers do such and such. No? Why do you think temporary marriage gets such a bad rap? Because our people misuse it. We abuse it. We treat people poorly under the guise of religious law, so they look and they say, the Shia, look at them. They engage in prostitution, they engage in frivolous, intimate relationships, throw each other out, they jump from partner to partner, and indeed, unfortunately, it happens. My dear brothers and sisters, the leadership we follow does not represent this. It is the highest of morality. The care Rasul had for his wives is the highest of care. Even the ones that did not treat him properly, he at least treated them with mercy and compassion. There is never evidence in the history that he ever yelled at them, cursed at them, spoke coarsely to them. Forget about beat or physically assault. We don't even address those things. It's not even possible. He is the mercy to the worlds. So what standard do we hold ourselves to? We must hold ourselves to the highest of standards. I will finish with one thing, inshallah, that I hope does not scare and startle you too much. It is reported from Al-Imam Al-Hadi alayhi salatu wassalam. He says, لو ميزت شيعتي لم أجدهم إلا واصفة. I ask that you listen carefully to the words of your Imam. He says, if I want to distinguish my Shia, he says, لو ميزت شيعتي. He says, my Shia. If I want to distinguish my Shia, and I glance at them and look at them, I will see the only thing that they represent is the description of the Shia. They don't actually embody it. They are Shia by name only. He says, وَلَوْ إِمْتَحَنْتُهُمْ لَمَا وَجَدْتُهُمْ إِلَّا مُرْتَدِّينَ. He says, if I test them, meaning I give them trial, I put a trial upon them to see whether they're truly Shia, he says, I notice that they are all apostate. They are all apostates. This is our Imam. Our Imam is saying this. He says, وَلَوْ تَمَحَّصْتُهُمْ لَمَا خَلَصَ مِنَ الْأَلْفِ وَاحِدٌ. He said, if I screened them one by one, looking at them, one by one, looking at them, one by one, examining them to see which is true Shia, he said, out of 1,000, not even one will remain. Ya Allah, Ya Allah. He says, وَلَوْ غَرْبَلْتُهُمْ غَرْبَلَةً لَمْ يَبْقَ مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا مَا كَانَ لِي. He says, if I examine through trial, through difficulty, which one remains, no one will remain. And then he says something very important. He says, إِنَّهُمْ طَالَمَا اتَّكَأُوا عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ قَالُوا نَحْنُ شِيعَةُ عَلِيٍّ. He says, as long as they are sitting on their couches, reclined on their couches, he says it very specifically. He says, as long as they are reclining on their couches, they very quickly say, we are the Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, أَلَا إِنَّ شِيعَةُ عَلِي مَنْ صَدَّقَ قَوْلَهُ فِعْلُهُ. He says, they should know that the true Shia of Ali is the one who, when they speak, it is what is coming out of their heart. There is no disconnect between the heart and the tongue. What did we say about morality? That morality may be one thing on the inside, but something else on the outside. Or vice versa. No? And here Imam Hadi is saying, you want to be the Shia of Ali? Ensure that what comes out of your mouth is exactly what is in here. Leadership brings this out. And unfortunately, few have it. That's why you see those who support Amir al-Mu'mineen like this, only a few. Men like Salman al-Farsi, like Bilal ibn Rabah, Aba Dhar, men like Maytham al-Tammar, men who like Rushayd al-Hajari, great men, Habib ibn Madahir, these people who what's in the heart is true and what comes out is true. And that is the height of morality. And that's why, maybe that's why, my dear brothers and sisters, when the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam came, that when his time of demise came, the history reports that he was sick, he was lying on his deathbed, and that some people had come, his wives had come. At one moment, they say he turns and he says, "Ud'u li akhi wa sahibi." Call for me my brother and my companion. So one of the wives of Rasulullah, she went and she brought her father. The history, it describes that Rasulullah a'rada anhu, he turned his head away from him. When he came in, he turned his head away from him. And again he said, "Ud'u li akhi wa sahibi." Call for me my brother and my companion. The other wife, she goes, she brings her father, who is a companion of Rasulullah. He comes in, and again the history describes, a'rada anhu Rasulullah, he turned his head away from him. Until finally, Salama, she says, "Innahu yurid Ali." He is talking about Ali ibn Abi Talib. He's not asking for anybody else. Go call Ali. The history says Ali ibn Abi Talib is summoned, he comes in. When he comes into the room, they say Rasulullah tells everybody to leave. Go from here. They all exit except for Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he describes, it's reported, that I sat at the head of Rasulullah. And in those last moments, he opened up doors of knowledge for me. For each door, 1,000 doors. Each door, 1,000 doors. All the knowledge he gave to me. He said to me, Ya Ali, la tufariqni. Don't leave me. Don't leave me, Ya Ali. He says, don't leave me until my ruh leaves the body. Stay with me. What they were doing and what Ali is doing. Stay with me, Ya Ali, until my ruh leaves the body. And when it does, then you and only you wipe my body, meaning give it wash, ghusl, wa kaffinni, wa hannatni. Give me the kafan, give me the hunut, and you, and only you put me in the ground. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, I stayed with Rasulullah. Until finally he said, Id'u li qurrata ayni Fatima. Aina binti Fatima? Where is my daughter Fatima? They say about Fatima al-Zahra that she would say that when the ayah of the Quran was revealed, La taj'alu du'a al-rasuli baynakum ka du'a'i ba'dikum ba'da. The ayah came that said, don't make how you talk to Rasul the way you talk to each other. Fatima al-Zahra, she says, when this ayah was revealed, I would say, Ya Rasulallah to him. Because I wanted to obey the ayah. And when I said that to him, he wouldn't answer me. And I would say, Ya Rasulallah, trying to get his attention, and he wouldn't answer me. Until finally he would turn to me and he says, Ya Bunayya, Ya Fatima, this ayah was not revealed for you. It was revealed for everyone other than you. Innaki bid'atun minni, you are a piece of me. So instead say, Ya Abba, call me my father. Call me my father. They say in that last moment, Fatima al-Zahra, she comes into the room. The history describes, it says that in those moments Rasul will gain consciousness and he will fall unconscious. He will wake and he will become unconscious again. Then finally, when Fatima al-Zahra enters into the room, sees the state of her father, فَبَدَأَتْ تَبْكِي وَتَنُوحِ. She began to cry. فَأَخَذَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ بِيَدِ فَاطِمَةَ وَوَضَعَهَا فِي يَدِ عَلِيٍّ. He took the hand of Fatima. He placed it in the hand of her husband Ali ibn Abi Talib. والتفت إلى علي وقال يا علي وديعة الله ووديعة رسوله عندك فاحفظ الله واحفظني فيها. Placing the hand of Fatima in the hands of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, Ya Ali, the trust of Allah and the trust of His Rasul are in your hands. This Fatima, my daughter, this piece of me is in your hands. Protect her, safeguard Allah and safeguard me, my wishes in her. Amir al-Mu'mineen, in those last moments, Fatima al-Zahra, she looks at her father, she says, Ya Aba, Ruhi li ruhika al-fida, wa wajhi li wajhika al-waqa. My father, Ya Rasulullah, may my soul be sacrificed for your soul. May my face be replaced with your face. من للأرامل والمساكين من لليتامى والفقراء بعدك يا أبا. My father, Ya Rasulullah, who will take care of the orphans and the poor? Who will take care of the destitute and the widows when you are gone? Fatima al-Zahra, she is weeping and crying until finally they say Rasulullah whispers something in her ear. They do not say what he said to her. It remains a secret, it remains concealed until finally later it was revealed that Rasulullah, he said to Fatima, Fatima, don't be sad because you are crying over your father. Be assured that you are the first one to come back after me. And maybe Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, he knew that the door is going to come undone, that the nail is going to lodge in the rib of Allah. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونقسم عليك بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها لعن الله ظالميها اللهم شافي كل مريض اللهم رد كل غريب اللهم فك كل أسير اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك يا كريم اللهم وفقنا لمراضيك وجنبنا معاصيك وثبت أقدامنا على صراطك المستقيم وخذ بأيدينا إليك يا أرحم الراحمين وفرج عنا يا الله فرجا عاجلا قريبا كلمح البصر وأقرب من ذلك وافرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Thank you.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں کا سائباں ہے لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں کا سائباں ہے زہرا کا دل دکھانے مصروف ہر کماں ہے لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں کا سائباں ہے لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں سائباں ہے لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں کا سائباں ہے لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں کا سائباں ہے بڑھتی ہی جا رہی ہے زہرا کی بے قراری بے چین مصطفیٰ ہیں سونی ہے خلد ساری سینے پہ مرتضیٰ کے ہر تیر کا نشان ہے لاشے پہ مجتبی کے تیروں کا سائباں ہے لاشے پہ تیروں کا سائباں ہے شبیر کی صدا ہے لوگوں نہ تیر مارو تابوت مجتبی کا ایسے تو نہ سوارو، یہ وہ حسن ہے جو کہ خالق کا رازداں ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا سائبہ ہے، جو تیر بچ گئے ہیں کربل میں وہ چلانا، میں جانتا ہوں لوگوں نہیں دور وہ زمانہ، بھائی کے بعد میرا کربل میں امتحان ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا سائبہ ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا سائبہ ہے، لاش حسن پہ چھپ کے جس نے تیر مارا، محشر میں نہ ملے گا ان کو کوئی سہارا، لو آج تم کو دیتا شبیر یہ زباں ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا سائبہ ہے، چاہوں تو میں بھی کر دوں برپا بھی قیامت، بازو ابھی ہے میرے عباس کے سلامت، اکبر ہے ساتھ میرے وہ نا ابھی جواں ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا کارواں ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا سائبہ ہے، زہرا کا دل دکھانے مصروف ہر کماں ہے، لاشے پہ مجتبیٰ کے تیروں کا سائبہ ہے، یا حسین 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 یا حسین، اللہم صلی علی محمد۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم، اللہم صلی علی محمد عبدک ورسولک وحبیبک وصفیک ونبیک وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، وعلى علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، وعلى الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي والمهدي، الإمام القائم صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من زوال الإيمان وفتن الزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه، وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه والمسارعين إليه في قضاء حوائجه والمستشهدين بين يديه جميعا، ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات الله.